I can't wait for tonight's edition of Look North as we celebrate 50 years of broadcasting in Yorkshire.
And we are back where it all began, at this building in Leeds. We'll be looking back at some of the biggest events the region has covered since 1968. From floods to disputes, disasters to triumphs, we'll hear from former colleagues who covered the big stories and went on to become household names.
And from the tape reel to digital video, we'll also take a look at how technology has drastically changed the way we work. We'll also look at the changing face of Yorkshire over the last 50 years, as more people come to live and work in the greatest place on earth.
Can you believe for 20 years you've said to me, now here's Paul with an accurate weather forecast. I've got news of tomorrow's sofa tour, plus could winter be on its way back? Really? Join us all live from Woodhouse Lane.
This is BBC North.
Hello and welcome to Woodhouse Lane. You know, I absolutely love this place because we broadcasted most of our 50 years from here. And I just want you just to have a look behind me as we pan round and see if you can make out some of the known faces, of course, and some of those from the past as well. I don't know which is the better side, but they're all pretty good as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it was the 25th of March 1968 when Look North first went on air, and we reckon there's been 13,000 episodes since then, and this wonderful man, Harry, has presented around 9,000 of those. Now, although you may recognise some faces in the room, some may have changed a little over the last 50 years, but the way in which TV works certainly has. Olivia Richwald has been delving into the archives.
Popped out. BBC North from Leeds.
March the 25th, 1968.
Good evening.
Look North was on the air for the very first time. We were in black and white, played out on film reels.
There are more acres in Yorkshire than there are...
Colour arrived in the mid-70s, but sound and pictures were still being recorded separately to be reunited at the editing stage. This rare behind-the-scenes footage shows a microphone cable trailing from one boat to another. For the first 2 decades, Look North reports were spliced and then fixed back together with sticky tape on the Steenbeck editing machine, which is now preserved at the Yorkshire Film Archive.
You had to place the film in the splicer, and then you actually cut the film, and then you cut the sound as well at a slopey angle, and you used a little bit of sellotape to make the join. When you watch old film very carefully, if you look at the join, if you didn't get a really smooth join, you can still see the little bit of sellotape going through. We then moved through tape, and we're now through onto digital editing. But editing always remains the same in your head. You're still joining together sound and picture, and that's what I really like.
Minutes to the opt.
Behind every good programme is a diligent team working in the gallery. Diane Marshall has worked for Look North for 42 years and keeps us all on time.
With you in under a minute now, Amy, stand by. I started working for Look North in January 1976. There were no computers, not even an electric typewriter. And reporters, when they were out on a story, would have to go into a phone box, reverse the charges to ring in and phone, copy over the phone, and people would be bashing away on these typewriters. We didn't have any satellite trucks, so we couldn't do any outside broadcasts, whereas today I can have 3 or 4 satellite trucks out in one evening if it's a big story. With you in 1 minute, Harry.
I'm speaking to the reporters saying, you've 30 seconds left. Wind now.
Sutcliffe was led up into the dock, handcuffed to a plainclothes detective.
From the 1990s onwards, technological advances have enabled Look North to become a more immediate news programme. Mobile phones, computers and the internet have revolutionised journalism.
Good evening and welcome
We can report live from multiple locations.
The great joy now is that, of course, you can edit out in the sticks.
25 winters I've covered.
You could never do that when I started. You literally, unless you were doing a live, and even that had to be booked by a complex operation. Now you can be editing out on location at 6:25 and still be firing your piece into the programme.
From 1968 to 2018, the way we gather our material has changed a lot, but some stories will always make the news. We've tried to reflect Yorkshire life. But what about the future? As technologies become smaller and cheaper, we've been able to cover more stories. And increasingly, as well as featuring in our reports, Yorkshire people are now filming parts of them too. Olivia Richwald, happy birthday, BBC Look North.
Now let me introduce you to two people who sum up really what Look North and News is all about. They are giants in their own way. Jeremy Thompson, who's worked for everybody all over the world, started here at Look North as well. And Paul Berriff, who was on our first ever programme. We'll come to you in a moment, if I may, Paul. But I want to remind people just how good Jeremy Thompson was. Take a look at this, his coverage of the Black Panther.
It was 3:45 on a bitterly cold January morning when the Black Panther staged his first major crime. The year was 1971. The victim was to be Donald Swallow, the postmaster in the tiny pit village of Jump near Barnsley.
Now, in those days, Jeremy, you had to be very, very quick to even get anything actually on air, didn't you?
Quick? Well, we thought we were quick, but compared with breaking news these days, it was probably pretty slow, really, because there were no mobile phones, which people might find pretty hard to grasp. There was no sort of modern technology, no digital age, no smartphones. We went out there with a film camera in the morning and filmed a story and came back at the end of the day when we finished it. There was no sort of picking up phones and having directions. And then the film had to be put in the processing bath and then cut in the edit rooms. It was actually quite a lengthy and sort of drawn-out process. We thought we were as quick as flash, but we clearly weren't.
You have some massive stories to cover, of course. The Black Panther was shocked everybody in Yorkshire.
Yeah, huge. And, yeah, to find a guy in the midst of the community who was going out and committing these dreadful armed raids on post offices. He killed 3 postal workers, and then he went for what he thought were the big bucks. He took hostage a young girl called Leslie Whittle, who was found dead in some drainage shafts in the Midlands, and eventually this guy Leslie Nielsen was tracked down and brought to justice. And there was such hatred directed towards him that they had to hold the trial in Oxford because they didn't think he'd get a fair trial here.
We could talk about the same about the Ripper as well, but of course then there was Flixborough as well, which was a monumental story.
Huge. It was the first big disaster that I'd ever covered, and Paul here was the first cameraman on the scene, but I was one of the first reporters. And
can we
I
bring
think
you
we
in
were
there, Paul, actually?
We were shocked by the scale of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like looking at a scene from World War II. The plant had been decimated completely. It was burning from end to end, but all the houses and on all the estates around the area were absolutely flattened. It was just unbelievable.
And you were the one who caught that footage, because there was a moment when they thought there was going to be a second explosion.
That's right.
Everyone ran, including your cameraman, and you were the only one there capturing it.
Yeah, right. The whistle started blowing and everybody threw down the hose pipes and ran across the field where I was there filming. I stood there, I didn't run, and I was there for 2 or 3 seconds, and I panned with the firemen and police, and in the distance with them I saw this guy carrying his microphone. It was my soundman. He'd gone off as well.
It's not the first time we've had a close call, because you captured the moment when the Twin Towers fell in New York, and in fact it's this camera here, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the camera that survived with me, and you can probably see there's all the dust on it from the World Trade Centre there.
Just incredible. So the camera was smashed up and you were actually knocked to the ground, weren't you?
Yeah, I was unconscious for about 30 minutes and I was lying there when the North Tower fell on me as well. So I was very lucky to get away with my life that day.
But that footage you took has been around the world several times over. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us. I wish we could talk to you for longer, because I know there's many years that we could go back over. But join us in a few minutes' time, because we will be joined by some famous faces from the past, won't we, Harry?
Yeah, we will. Someone called Sophie Raworth, I've heard of her review, and Judith Stamper, my old friend, the Brigadier. But let's have more news now from around the region. And let's talk now to Keely. It's all yours, Keely.
Thank you very much, Harry. Barnsley MP Dan Jarvis will be Labour's candidate for the Sheffield City Region Mayor. It's been revealed today. Mr Jarvis beat rival Ben Curran by 681 votes. Turnout was 37%. It's not known if Mr Jarvis will be allowed to continue as an MP following a ruling by Labour's National Executive Committee. He wants to do both jobs. The mayoral vote will be held on the 3rd of May. Big names from the world of Yorkshire cricket have joined family and friends at the funeral of BBC commentator Dave Callaghan. St Joseph's Roman Catholic Church in Wetherby was packed out for the service. Dave died suddenly last week at the age of just 63. A former sports editor at BBC Radio Leeds, he was described as the voice of Yorkshire cricket and a legend.
He enjoyed the success of the cricket team, or any sporting team. You know, he was deeply into his sport, wasn't he? And he loved being around sports people, and he enjoyed the success that we've had recently, you know, as much as the players and the staff.
A woman who was rescued from the River Aire in Leeds has met the firefighters and quick-thinking city centre resident who saved her. 20-year-old Louise Evans fell into the water after a night out earlier this month and was saved using a throw line installed on the riverbank. It's the first time the lines have been used in a successful rescue. Today, Louise visited Kirkstall Fire Station to thank everyone involved in her rescue.
I'm so indebted to them, like, they saved my life. And to imagine, like, you hear like superheroes, things like the fire service is like a superhero base. It's amazing.
The former Odeon Cinema in Bradford is to get £4 million of government money to transform it into a music venue. The landmark city centre building has been derelict since closing in 2000. The money has come as part of the Northern Cultural Regeneration Fund and is intended to be a legacy of the Great Exhibition of the North. The York City owner, Jason McGill, has put his 75% share in the club up for sale. Last night, the York City Supporters Trust voted no in a ballot over whether to hand over its 25% share. Mr McGill said he's immensely disappointed by the vote and has asked potential buyers to come forward. Now, Sir David Attenborough has been in York today to open a new dinosaur exhibition at the Yorkshire Museum. The Jurassic World exhibition uses technology to show what the country might have looked like more than 150 million years ago. Sir David even had a go at feeding a dinosaur using virtual reality.
To be able to suddenly look up and look around and see one of these immense sauropod dinosaurs, one of the big jobs, along there looking at you, it's very impressive.
In Malton 160 million years ago, it was a tropical sea. You know, we would have been under the water, and to actually sort of be able to put people in that environment is I think, something a bit different and really quite exciting.
Well, that's it from me. Time to continue celebrating Look North's 50th birthday with Harry and Amy.
Keely, thank you very much indeed. We've already discussed a little bit about how technology has changed over the 50 years, but so too has the makeup of our wonderful county.
Yes, the changing face of Yorkshire has seen people from all over the world come to live and work here, and for some of those communities it wasn't always easy in the early days. Here's our communities reporter, Sabia Pervez.
When I was born, I was black. When I grew up, I was black.
Carol Ruddock is reciting a poem her father, Alan Ruddock, loved.
I am black.
Alan was a young boy when he moved to Leeds from Jamaica in 1957. A couple of years later, he appeared on Look North.
Where I come from, that's the man I am, you know. Really, I don't think I'm a Yorkshireman, really.
Do you think you'll always feel this way, even if you stay in this country all your life?
Well, really, I have no problems, no trouble with nobody, you know, so I'm happy here.
When he arrived in Leeds, his early experiences left a mark on him.
I remember him telling me as a child, he used to have to run because they used to have a group called skinheads that used to chase them from town to Chapel Town. He came here as a young boy thinking he was going to live a better life, and he ended up having to run for his life. So how could he feel like he's a Yorkshire man when he's having to do that?
But the future of the black community looks promising.
Now, majority of our children are going to university. The education is up there, and they're not going to put up with what we're putting up because they're using their education to get them where they need to be. So in 50 years' time, I expect to see more black prime ministers. I expect to see more of that in our communities.
But it wasn't just migrants from the Caribbean who were adjusting to a new life in Leeds in the late 60s. Next door in Bradford, men from Pakistan were arriving to work in the mills and factories across the city. This takeaway was established to feed those workers.
My father came here in 1957 and then he got the idea of making the Sweet Centre because of the Drummond Mill. And because of Drummond Mill, then we started the breakfast, and from there we're going on.
Liaquat says he has seen a change in his customers in the past 50 years.
First there was only used to be like men to come to our business. Now it's families coming in as well, females coming in. Now we've got customers like English people as well, African people as well. They come and enjoy our breakfast and the sweets and desserts.
Just across the road from the Sweet Centre is this synagogue. It's one of the oldest in the UK outside London. And recently it's brought together the Jewish and Muslim community here in Bradford.
We did establish, in the end, very close relationships with the Muslim community, so much so that they contributed financially to the repair and upkeep of the synagogue. And this in itself cemented relations between the Muslim community and the Jewish community very much indeed.
The Jewish community in Bradford is dwindling, but in Leeds, it's flourishing.
What's amazing that's happened over the last decade is whereas young people were leaving the community, going to university in London, in Manchester, and not coming back, young people over the last couple of years have either stayed in Leeds and not left, or they've come back to Leeds after they finished university.
But it's not just communities in West Yorkshire that have changed the face of our region in the past 50 years. Here in Sheffield, people have migrated from China, Eastern Europe and Somalia, to name just a few. Yorkshire has a rich history of welcoming people from all over the world. Today that history lives on. Our region is home to some of the largest minority communities outside London. Sabia Pervez, BBC Look North.
You know, whenever I go out to places, I'm often asked about our next two guests. One of them, whatever happened to, and the other one did quite well. But basically, Judith Stamper, of course, who I always knew as the Brigadier. We'll talk about that probably a little later on.
All right.
And the lovely Sophie Raworth as well.
Yeah.
Lovely
Sophie, you presented here in the 90s.
The 90s, a long time ago.
How does it feel to be back here?
This is the first time I've been back in this building for 20 years, and it is very strange walking up the steps here and all these faces. There are lots of people, including my old boss standing right on my shoulder there, John Williams. It's amazing to be back there.
And what are your memories of being at Look North?
Being very, very frightened because I had never been on television until I arrived here, and I got a job. I was a producer in Brussels, and I arrived from Brussels, and I got a job as a reporter with a view to doing some presenting. And Judith, who was really well known here and was brilliant at the job, and she just left, huge shoes to fill. And I turned up, and, I was late 20s, and I turned up, and I had to, and John over there chucked me on air, literally. There was no, this is how you do it. It's just go and do it, give it a go. And thankfully, I had wonderful Mike McCarthy, who was with me every single day, and was so supportive, and I really couldn't have done it without him.
And that relationship with a co-host is so important, isn't it?
Oh, he dug me out of so many holes, so many holes.
I know the feeling, Sophie.
I know, live television. And when you've never done live TV before, I just remember sitting there and behind the desk, and there was a glass of water here, and I couldn't pick it up because I was like this, and I just started to pour it down myself. And no, he really, really helped. He knew what he was doing, and he taught me an awful lot.
Now, Judith, you and I were on the sofa for 12 years, so to speak. What were the highlights for you?
Oh, well...
where do I start?
Such a pro.
Love lights first.
Yes, go on then.
Well, as you know, we've got this documentary coming out on at 4 o'clock on Sunday, and we saw so many clips. Some of the stuff we did together, I can't remember. Dressing up in those weird things, you know, knight and maiden, and all of that kind of stuff.
It still does that.
But only at weekends now.
But I mean, Sophie's so right about having a partner who you can trust, and we were always like that, and we pulled each other out of amazing scrapes, didn't we?
Yeah, you always used to do the serious things, and I used to do the daft things,
Yeah.
basically, wasn't it? Did I embarrass you on air at all? I know Rick Mail certainly did, but did I?
Yeah, once.
Go on.
Well, more than once. But on one occasion, you decided to give me a Valentine present.
Right.
And in came, unbeknownst to me, a red dress and a bouquet of red roses. And the red dress was my own dress that you'd nicked from the dressing room that had come back from the cleaners. And I
One of
didn't
those
quite know
things.
what to say.
Well, we'd like to give you a bit of a snapshot, really, into what our special programme, which goes out on Sunday on BBC One at 4 o'clock, is about. We did a kind of goggle box. Here's a sneak preview.
Oh, no!
Oh, Rick Mail. Rick Mail.
No.
This is still the piece that goes down as far as, you know, one of the great moments of Look North television.
I'm going to do the one thing that every man in Yorkshire wants to do. Come on, Jude. Give us a snog.
Oh, my God. Will I make it?
Now,
Oh, no. I didn't know what to do, Harry. I just didn't know what to do.
Where's Mike?
Well, it might surprise you to know that Harry is still doing daft things. 50 Years of Look North is on BBC One at 4 p.m. on Sunday, and it promises to be a brilliant watch, doesn't it, Harry?
I think it is. I'm looking forward to it.
Now, we've been doing some crazy things for Sport Relief this last 8 days. In fact, I'm surprised we're not here trying to lift these sofas, Harry. I'm feeling a little bit strange today, not having to cart a sofa around. But Sophie, you've done your own challenges for Sport Relief, haven't you, this year?
I have, but nothing like the one you've been doing. I just did a really short clash of the channels, ITV versus the BBC boat race, which is on this evening, and obviously no pressure there, you know, what they say, and I've never realised rowing was quite so frightening. Anyway, that's on tonight, but nothing like the one you've been doing, carting a sofa around. 50 places, the big 50 sofa challenge. Well, I'm going to give you, I'm glad to see you're sitting down, so I'll give you a little bit of a rest and introduce the next item, which is a reminder of what they've been up to.
Well, we've now got a hailstorm, and it's killing on the side of our faces.
I'll tell you this is a challenge and a half.
The sofa should not be coming up standard edge.
This is the last time I do this. Well, with me now is Paul Hudson, who of course is involved in that ridiculous challenge.
Ridiculous.
You and I have been working 20 years together.
You've said for 20 years, now here's an accurate forecast with Paul. I mean, it's been incredible. what?
I handed you first.
You did. You were the first person to hand over to me.
Here he is.
Yeah, it's been an incredible change in the weather scene, hasn't it? It's gone from magnetic stripes and symbols that you used to watch, and then it's the social media scene, which has transformed everything.
It has.
Well, Sophie, I know that you're really into your fitness, so if you want to join us on our sofa challenge, you are more than welcome to.
You never know. Yeah, where do we go? Where are we going?
Well, we've got one day left.
Okay,
It's tomorrow. It's Bradford to Haworth.
Right.
And here is the route.
Saturday is now our final day. We're due to leave Cartwright Hall in Bradford's Lister Park at 10 o'clock. We'll climb through Heaton to Sandy Lane, Willesden and Harecroft, including a walk over the stunning Hewenden Viaduct.
Then it's off to Cullingworth before the challenging finale. Up the cobbles of Haworth's Main Street at 5 p.m. Come and join us for our big finish.
Saturday's route features 6 locations, taking us to our final total of 50. See the full route at www.bbc.co.uk/sofa and follow our progress on Twitter at BBC Sofa.
Well, we're rather excited here because we've managed to get ourselves an up-to-date total for our challenge so far. And even we are amazed at this one because it is now 126,870.
Wow.
Well
done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have been overwhelmed by your generosity when we've been on the street pulling the sofa and also by texting. If you would like to donate, here is how you do it.
If you'd like to support our efforts and make a donation to Sport Relief,
You can donate £5. Text the word SOFA to 70205.
text costs £5 plus your standard network message charge, and 100% of your donation will go to Sport Relief.
You must be 16 or over and please ask the bill payer's permission. For full terms or to donate online, visit bbc.co.uk/sofa.
Or by post, please send a cheque made payable to Sport Relief 2018.
To BBC Look North, 2 St Peter's Square, Leeds, LS9 8AH. Thank you.
Paul, we have been very hampered by hideous weather. Sophie, we've had snowstorms, we've had torrential rain, we've had gale force winds.
Sort it out.
Well, I did forecast it.
It's not that powerful, sadly.
I mean, tomorrow looks, it's going to be damp and drizzly when we set off in Bradford, but by the time we get to Haworth, it should be fine and fairly mild, actually, so at least we've not got any adverse weather to deal with. I'll give you the details because I tell you what, it looks like winter's on its way back. I mean, it's the winter that doesn't give up. Perhaps by Wednesday of next week we could have snow again. If not Wednesday, the Easter weekend looks as though it's going to be wintry, so it's going on and on and on. Let's start, though, with the details for the next 24 hours. We'll start with the satellite sequence, actually, because it's actually been a pretty nice day across Yorkshire, across Derbyshire, and the North Midlands. We saw some sunshine, but the clouds are moving up from the south. You can see that very clearly. And as we head through this evening and overnight, if we run that sequence, you can see that the cloud does move bodily northwards, and it's going to thicken. It's going to bring some drizzle and some light rain, some mistiness and some hill fog perhaps in the Haworth area tonight. But at least it's going to be frost-free, and we'll see temperatures around 3 or 4 degrees. So for tomorrow morning, if you're joining us at Bradford Lister Park, it's going to be damp and dismal, but otherwise it's a fairly cloudy morning. There'll be a bit of brightness towards the coast, but a little bit of patchy rain and drizzle can't be ruled out, but it will be a slow improvement. By the time we get to Saturday afternoon, skies will be brightening from the west. There should be some sunshine in Skipton by the middle of the afternoon, and hopefully that sunshine will spread across Haworth into Bradford, Leeds and Sheffield by the end of the day. And relatively mild, 10 or 11, the high 11 Celsius is 52 Fahrenheit. Further ahead then, Sunday, the best day of the weekend, dry with some sunshine. We keep that fine weather on Monday. Then a lot of uncertainty for the middle of next week. But if the European model's to be believed, we'll have snow on Tuesday night into Wednesday. A lot of uncertainty. If it doesn't get us by the middle of next week, Easter weekend is looking cold and wintry too. That's the forecast.
Thanks, Paul. Well, our celebration will continue. You can probably see this incredible cake here. I'm not sure
which is you and
I was
me.
about to say that. It's not a great likeness of me, and it's certainly not a great likeness of you anyway.
Thank you.
But thank you very much indeed. But I bet it would be absolutely lovely for us all to share throughout the course
I'm sure it
of
will.
the
Thank
evening.
you so much to all of our wonderful guests, past and present, of Look North. We are going to celebrate in style tonight. 50 years of BBC Look North. Wow. Thank you for watching over all of those years.
Good night. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good night.